The dress that divided the internet in 2015, was it white and gold or blue and black? Millions of people looked at the same image and saw completely different colors. The answer depended on how each viewer's visual cortex was interpreting the ambient light and inferring the color of the illuminant. Visual illusions like this reveal something profound. Your visual system does not show you the world. It constructs a model of the world, and that model can be wrong. The trichromatic theory of color vision, proposed by Young and Helmholtz in the 19th century, holds that color perception begins with three types of cone photoreceptors in the retina, each maximally sensitive to different wavelengths of light, corresponding roughly to red, green, and blue. The relative activation of these three cone types signals color information to the visual system. All other colors are encoded as combinations of these three channels. A yellow object activates both the red and green cones equally, while orange activates mostly red with some green. Ewald Hering's opponent process theory, initially proposed as a rival to trichromatic theory, but now understood as complementary, holds that color information is processed by cells that respond in opposing fashion to pairs of colors: red versus green, blue versus yellow, and black versus white. These opponent cells are activated by one color and inhibited by the other. The theory explains afterimages. Stare at a green image for 30 seconds, then look at a white surface, and you will see a red afterimage, because the green opponent cells have fatigued and now the red channel dominates. Color blindness, more accurately called color vision deficiency, results from having fewer than the normal three types of functional cones or from altered cone photopigments. The most common form is red-green color blindness, caused by anomalies in the long or medium wavelength cone photopigments, affecting approximately 8% of men and less than 1% of women. The X-linked inheritance pattern explains this sex difference. Men have only one X chromosome, so a single defective gene produces the condition. People with dichromacy have only two functional cone types and experience a reduced, but not absent color world. Binocular depth cues require input from both eyes working together. Retinal disparity is the most powerful binocular cue. Because your eyes are separated by about 6 centimeters, each eye sees the world from a slightly different angle, producing slightly different retinal images. The brain computes depth from the magnitude of this disparity. The greater the disparity, the closer the object. Stereograms and 3D movies exploit retinal disparity artificially. Convergence is the degree to which the eyes must rotate inward to focus on a nearby object. More convergence signals closer distance. Monocular cues convey depth information from a single eye, which is why they work in photographs and paintings, flat 2D images that can still appear three-dimensional. Linear perspective is the convergence of parallel lines toward a vanishing point. Interposition means nearer objects block parts of farther objects. Texture gradient refers to the progressive loss of surface detail with increasing distance. Relative size uses the fact that closer objects project larger retinal images. Motion parallax captures the faster apparent movement of closer objects when your head moves. Eleanor Gibson and Richard Walk's visual cliff experiment placed infants on a glass-covered surface with a pattern that appeared to drop off on one side. Most infants who could crawl refused to cross to the deep side, even when their mothers encouraged them from the other side, demonstrating that depth perception is functional by the time of independent locomotion and likely develops partly through maturation rather than purely through learning. Newly hatched chicks and baby goats also avoid the visual cliff immediately after birth, suggesting evolutionary preparation for depth detection. The Muller-Lyer illusion consists of two lines of equal length, one ending in inward-pointing arrowheads and one ending in outward-pointing arrowheads. The inward line appears longer. The most compelling explanation is that the arrowhead angles activate the depth constancy system. Inward arrowheads resemble the inside corner of a room receding from you, which the brain interprets as farther away. Since a farther object projects the same retinal image size, the brain interprets it as physically larger. Critically, the illusion is weaker in people from cultures with few right-angled architectural environments. Perceptual constancy is the tendency to perceive objects as stable and unchanged in shape, size, color, and brightness despite changes in the retinal image. Size constancy means you perceive a person as full-sized even when they are far away and project a tiny retinal image. Shape constancy means a circular coin looks circular even when viewed at an angle and projects an elliptical image. Color constancy means you perceive a white shirt as white in yellow indoor lighting even though the wavelengths hitting your eye are actually yellow. Perceptual constancy is the brain applying prior knowledge to correct for changes in viewing conditions. The moon appears dramatically larger when near the horizon than when high in the sky, yet photographic measurements confirm the retinal image is exactly the same size in both cases. Several explanations have been proposed. The apparent distance theory argues that terrain cues on the horizon make the horizon seem farther away. Since the moon's retinal image is the same size, but it appears farther away, the brain infers it must be larger. The relative size theory argues that surrounding objects near the horizon provide contrast that makes the moon appear larger than when surrounded only by empty sky. Vision is not a camera, it is a construction. Your visual system uses light as raw data, but applies an enormous amount of prior knowledge, inference, and assumption to build a model of the world that is usually right and occasionally dramatically wrong. Understanding color vision, depth perception, and visual illusions is understanding the operating assumptions of the most sophisticated image processing system in the known universe.